Everyone, I'm Natalia. Welcome to my channel, and welcome to, I guess this is becoming kind of a book series for those of you who love to read as much as I do, where I share books I have read and books I'm going to read next. For those of you who love to read, this is one of my favorite things to do on this channel because I love books, anything booky, anyways, books, love it. So get comfortable. We have a lot of books to get through, and I'd love to share what I have selected for next month. I was craving today all day pumpkin something, it's fall. It's my favorite time of the year. October is my birthday month, and I was craving something like pumpkinish latte, but I ended up settling on chai latte. Kind of sweet. I don't have a sweet tooth, so this is a little too sweet for me. So, but it's good. Anyhow, so last month I have selected, now I keep forgetting if I select 7 or 8 books per month. I think could be 8, but I end up reading additional 2 books in addition to that. It has been a hectic month. David and I are looking to buy a house in Pacific Northwest. So we've been up to Portland for like a week and a half. Then I also traveled to New York to see my sister for another week. So when I travel, I have a hard time keeping up with the readings because I just don't feel as grounded as I do at home. So it has been a hectic month for me. And I'm glad to be back home, and I just cannot wait to start new books to read. So as you know, last time I started off reading this book. I'm very familiar with Sharon Blakey. Her book, If Women Stood Rooted, I think the name of it, is something that I partially read before. She also teaches a lot of classes on mythology, as well as she has a course on healing journey. I never taken her classes, but people speak highly of her. So when I saw this one, Hectitude, I grabbed it because I'm always drawn to anything with the crone energy. I'm always drawn to anything that is kind of older wisdom, older sage type of wisdom. And I loved this book. I especially loved in the beginning where she describes the alchemical process of menopause. I found it really interesting. But then as the book progressed, it left a little bit less and less of something to desire. So I got a little bit disappointed. I would say first part of the book I really enjoyed. The other half of the book I didn't really enjoy it much. And then she gets into some personal views on transgender individuals and primarily trans people in female bathrooms that I don't share the same views. So it was like another additional kind of towards the end. So, but those are just views, we'll have different views on things. And obviously I work in the field, so I'm going to have a very different point of view. So is this good? Yes. Would I highly recommend it? No. So this is Hectitude, but I did enjoy the first part of the book. Then when I got the Hectitude, I don't know how many people do this. When you go on Amazon and there's a book you like, and then you go and you see what other books they recommend or what other books other people bought similar to this one. That's what I usually do if I love the book. So when I was reading Hectitude, I was searching around on Amazon and I stumbled on this one. And I did not share this last time in my pile because I kind of added it to my pile. Now, Rebecca Solnit is somewhat, I would say probably somewhat prolific writer. I have read, what did I read by you, Rebecca? I have read something in the past from her, and I enjoy her writing. This book, this particular, The Far Way Nearby, is a beautiful, beautiful compilation of stories that weaved throughout her life. And I especially love the way she tends to think. There's a part in an essay that just blew me away, just really took me to different places because it felt so familiar when I was sick with cancer, where she herself is going through having a breast tumor being removed, or breast lumps, at least she's going through biopsy, where they're trying to figure out whether she actually has encapsulations in her breast, or whether it's actually a benign type of tumor that you can just remove. And the way she describes this way that our body is our terrain and our territory, and how we know it 1 minute, and then the next minute we're lost within the terrain and territory of our body, and we don't even know what it is. And we are end up being at a, in a way, end up being at the word I'm looking for, at the hands, I would say, of doctors who we believe and perceive know our body better than just a second ago. We were the ones who knew our body better than anybody else. And it's just a beautiful, depthful way of writing. So if you like kind of a story, each chapter is being a different theme, but that they're all unified throughout the book. Rebecca Solnit, and she just published a book called Orwell's Roses. I thought about it because I always confuse the Orwell, not confused, but in this particular book, I've been calling it Orson, like Orson Welles' Roses, but it's not about Orson Welles, it's about Orwell, George Orwell, and it's about him as a man, and going in depth about him as a man, a little bit biographical. And it's about him being avid gardener and how he planted roses, and it's also going into roses and goes into a lot of other things. And I got that one for my husband because he loves to garden, and he just finished reading the book and he enjoyed it. So that's for that. This is the one that I shared last time in my pile, and this is Spell in the Wild by Alice Torbuck. This is a beautiful book. I think for the fall, I would highly recommend it for anybody for the fall. Each chapter is a month, and she has an easy way of writing, but she has a very beautiful, introspective way of thinking about things. And she brings that introspection to the table, and she takes us on a journey of that introspection. So I really, really enjoyed this book. I thought that this was just lovely. I couldn't put it down. It put a smile on my face. It made me reconnect with all of the aspects of a call that I enjoy so much. And then, as I always do with the writers that I like, I go and I see what kind of books they mention in the books, or which works they cite. And I picked up 2 books for this month that she has cited in this book, hoping that they will be equally as good. So this is a beautiful read. If you're looking for something easy breezy, but insightful and introspective at the same time for the fall, I would really recommend it. I love it. I was going to read this one. This is the only book I did not read. If you know me that I will pile up books, and if I start reading them and they don't hold my interest, I have no problem moving them along, because I have so many books that I want to read, and I'm not one of those people. If I started a book, I have to finish it. That was me maybe when I was in my 20s. Now me in my 40s, it's like, fuck it, life is too short. So I started reading this book, The Feminine and the Sacred, by 2 writers. This letters interchangeably between them. And it's quite, goes really deep into Christianity. Yeah, I can't do that right now, just not for me. So haven't read it, can comment on it. I picked up this one and this too by watching Lennon. Is it Lennon Smith? It can be Smith. That sounds too like my brain is picking up on something that might be simple. Lennon has a YouTube channel. I will link it below. She also shares books she has read, and last time she shared, among other books, this too. Now, and she loved them both. Patti Smith, I have all of her books. My favorite is M Train. If you have not read M Train, it is magical. It takes you to a different place. It's a book that still, as I think about it, it's almost as if I can taste and smell and feel the book right now. Apart from having all of her books, including all of her poetry books, this is the one that my husband got, and he read it and he loved it, and I never read it. I don't know why, and I don't know what I was waiting for. So I picked it up this time, and I finished it in a matter of 2 days. It's very different from M Train. If you read this one and you wonder, the difference is M Train is petty, contemplating, and she's retelling some nostalgic aspects of the memory. And it's the way she retells, and it's the ways that she weaves them together that is so beautiful. And you find yourself in the state of her reverie, right? She's sitting there, she's having coffee, and she's reminiscing all the things. And you become a part, you become an observer of that reverie. This one is different. This one is she's telling the story. It's a storytelling. She doesn't really take you to the story places. She's telling the story of her life, and especially her life and her relationship with Robert Mapplethorpe. And this is just a beautiful book. Quick read, very interesting. My God, yeah, New York back then, I can't even imagine. I was very lucky. They had a very big photographic exhibition of Robert's photographs here in Getty Center in about, I think, 7 years ago in Los Angeles. And my mom was visiting me, and I took my mom there. And one of the things I remembered when I was reading this book is that there were a variety of Robert's photographs there, from floral presentations of flowers to his beautiful compositions of the way he tends to juxtaposition individuals together and showcase individuals' body and physicality. And then there were an array of photographs of BDSM. And I remember my mom looking at those pictures and really taking her time. I remember paying attention that she didn't run away from it, it didn't shock her. And afterwards telling me how she was so surprised to find that here were the pictures of, one would say, borderline pornographic nature of, pretty hardcore BDSM. I mean, there was a photograph of Robert with a dildo pretty far into his anus. I mean, there's pictures of even fisting, if you know what fisting is. And my mom said that she found them to be so still tasteful and so beautiful in their representations. And I was thinking about it when I finished this book, and I thought this was the beauty and the power of Robert, being able to bring a culture, sexual culture, in photographic representation in such beautiful introductory way. So highly recommend. I ended up rewatching HBO documentary on Robert Mapplethorpe after this once, after I read it, because I was like in the state of, it's funny because when I did my Marina Abramovich Oracle, I think 4 years ago, I almost started making Robert Mapplethorpe Oracle using only his photographic black and white images. But it didn't get too far because what I was putting together as a collage was being a little too literal, and I didn't want that. But highly recommend. This one, I think many of you have read it. A Walk Through the Forest of Souls by Rachel Pollack. And I thought this was okay. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I just thought that it was all right. It was okay. Rachel, as you know, is a great writer. She brings a lot to the table. It just wasn't, I wouldn't say there was like a wow text for me. So if you have read it and you love it, let me know, comment below. Since I'm taking a Hal Hecate class with Jack Rail, and PGM, I'm taking also his class PGM Praxis. It's pretty much all about working with the spirits in order to do all of your magical work. And since we're working with the spirits, I have picked up these 2 books just, to get myself deeper into the spirit work, I suppose. So this is Fun by beloved Christopher Panzak. Many of you know him. Many of you love his writing. Many of you have his, I think it's called something Temple of Witchcraft, I think. Temple of Witchcraft 1, 2, 3. I think there's 3 volumes of them. And this one is by beloved Jason Miller. If you don't know Jason Miller, like I said before, you ought to know Jason Miller. I'll tell you why. So between these two books, I honestly at first thought that I would love this one more. This is good. This is probably one of my favorite Christopher's book, but this is good. This, on the other hand, Consorting with Spirits, is wonderful. Highly, highly recommend. Why do you want to know Jason Miller? Like I said before, because Jason is a very seasoned magician. He also teaches a class on Hecate, apart from other classes. And his books are all very, very down to earth, very practical, which I love. Sometimes, when people write magical books, it goes all over our heads. So I highly recommend. I really enjoyed this. This was a lovely read. He touches on a lot of things. Most importantly, he covers a lot of things that people who work with magic tend to wonder, but a lot of people are not really saying or expressing. And there's question and answers in the back section that was really, really good. Another thing that I loved about this particular book is that he actually shared way more about his own experiences with spirits than I have seen him share in other of his books, which I really appreciated. Anytime I see seasoned magician sharing what they messed up with, what went wrong, what went right, how things work out for them, I find it deeply fascinating. And you can tell that he's obviously not trying to boast, or he's not trying to magnify things he experienced, and he stresses out the relationship, the importance of relationship, and he stresses out the most important things that I also agree from my own experience working with the spirits, not so much working from the spirits, because I gotta be honest, I'm more like armchair practitioners than a workable practitioner. I'm just now getting into more into work. But from at least from a lot of books I read, this is what resonates with me: the establishment of relationship with them versus trapping them and commanding them. So highly recommend. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. We were in Portland. When you're in Portland, Oregon, you have to go to Powell's, which is a huge bookstore. And David and I went to Powell's. And when you go to Powell's, you don't walk out from Powell's empty-handed. So I was looking for, I don't know what I was looking for. I took 2 books from the pile to Portland. I didn't really read them, but I think when you're looking for a house to buy, you're hunting for a house, I get that it's very stressed. I was looking for something to take my mind off. And I stumbled on this one, Prophet. This is a new book by Sin Blanche and Helen McDonough. What got my attention about this book is 2 things. And this is fiction, by the way, guys. So for those of you who've been following books I read and reading, you know that fiction is like a rare occurrence in my life. And when it is, I seldom finish it. It has to be really good. So 2 things got my attention. Helen McDonald is the author of H is for Hawk, which I read and loved it. If you haven't read H for Hawk, is for Hawk, highly recommend it. Boy, what is she? She's a great writer. So I'm surprised that she ended up writing this book together with another author. Then the second thing that got me excited about this book, well, there's 2 other things that got me excited about the book. So this is sci-fi. I don't read sci-fi. I don't do sci-fi at all. It doesn't do anything for me. But I picked up this sci-fi. One, it's a story about 2 agents. One is an ex-MI6 agent, and another one is, I think another one is American intelligence officer. And they were both initially stationed in Uzbekistan. Now I'm from Uzbekistan. I was surprised that writers decided as a segment of the origin of a story to take place in Uzbekistan, because not a lot of people know where Uzbekistan is at. It's now part of Central Asia. It used to be part of Soviet Union. And the ways that they described Uzbekistan and described some Uzbek food was like music to my ears when I read it. I loved it so much. It made me miss my homeland so bad. Uzbek food is one of the fucking best food ever. Oh, and I would bet my money that one of the officers traveled to Uzbekistan, and that's why they decided to make it as a point, some aspect of the point in the story. But this is what I love the most. This is science fiction. but it's a very interesting science fiction that appeals to people like me who are shrinks or head doctors. So this is about, let me see if I can find it to read it for you guys. So basically it's about people's fondest memories being weaponized against them by ever-shifting substance called profit. So profit is the actual name of a substance that they engineered that weaponizes people's memories through the use of nostalgia. So whatever it is people nostalgic at, they draw it from the past and then makes those items come real. Interesting concept. A little bit cuckoo if you think about it, but when you read it, it's laid out nicely. Characters are, I'm smiling because I've read this book so fast. It was a page turner. I couldn't put it down. It's very well written book. I mean, it's not going to be your like really, really amazing Dostoevsky, Bulgakov type of writing, but it's well written for modern fiction. And the plot is great. The relationship between those two officers, their characters are complex, they're depthful. I fell in love with both of them. The story is great, and I highly recommend. If you have read it, let me know. If you're going to read it, let me know. I really enjoyed it. This was a page turner. And I'm happy that I ended up reading a fiction that I actually read. Okay, so now what are we going to be reading in the next months? And again, I don't remember if I select 7 or 8, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 8 books for the next month. So I have to go back to the other video and rewatch if I do 7 or 8. Also, let me know what you're reading right now. So as I said, I picked up 2 books from this book that she has cited in a book that she recommended. Well, not recommended, but if you're citing a book in a book, chances are you're citing it because you like it. Anybody has read this one? It's called The Wild Remedy by Emma Mitchell. This is supposed to be a kind of like a journey. It's a beautiful, by the way, book. It's also laid out month by month. And it's supposed to be kind of from her journey documentation. She's struggling with depression, the way I understand it, and how she was able to heal her depression by cultivating a connection to the wild, a connection to the nature month by month. And she writes about it. I haven't started reading it. It looks like a beautiful book. It laid out beautifully, but I'm looking forward to it. And I'm hoping it's going to be as charming, as lovely as that one. So The Wild Remedy by Emma Mitchell. Let me know if any of you have read it or going to read it. Another book. So in the end of this book, she has books that she recommends for some of her favorite books to recommend. And it's a very small list. It's further reading section. Oh, I picked up 3 books from here. Go figure. So this one was not further recommended, but it was cited inside the book. But 2 other ones were on her further reading list, and it picked up my interest. Again, I love how she writes, and I think that she girl that reads a lot of books. So I think when she recommends, she really recommends. The first one she recommended called Witchcraft Medicine, Healing Arts, Shamanic Practices, and Forbidden Plants. Not something I would usually read because I'm not really huge into healing plants, yada, 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 yada. But I'll tell you what I like about this. What I like about this is that is the way, at least I understand when I got this book, is that she talks about each plant and their historical, cultural, mythological connectivity, origins. The book also has pictures in it. So there's the alchemy in it as well. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think it might end up being more reference book or more reading book, but you know what? I'm up for it. I am moving to Pacific Northwest, guys. I am kind of craving like garden and gardening. I think this is what happens when you get to your crone ages. When does the crone age start, by the way? I'm going to be 43 on October 25th. I think the crone age is when you start menopause. Am I right about that? Anyways, I feel like I'm a crone already. I consider myself, I'm definitely not a mother. Definitely past my maiden days, thank goodness. But haven't hit my menopause yet. So crone anyhow. So I'm craving gardening. I'm craving, you know, I see my friend Kasia in Poland on her land, and she's making tinctures and things, and I want to make tinctures and things. So there's another book that I picked up that was recommended. Some of you might have read it. Ronald Hutton, really, really good historian, has written a number of books. This is called The Witch, The History of Fear from Ancient Times to the Present. I have read a lot of books on history of witches, and I just enjoy reading them because you always pick up something new, you always learn something new. So I'm looking forward to reading this. If you're going to order it, keep in mind, I ordered paperback first, and the font was really small. I'm blind. If you're blind, you might want to go for used hardback copy. And if you read it, let me know if it's worth reading, because you know how I am. If it's not, I scrap it. Few months ago, I was reading Peter Gray, The Red Goddess, which I did not like. I did not like his view of the Red Goddess, as you know. I did not like his writing on it. I also read Peter Gray, Apocalyptic Witchcraft, a while back, and it flew over my head. So either I just don't really get it, or I don't know. I'm going on, I just did not get it. But I do have another Peter Gray book. And so now that a few months have passed since I read The Red Goddess, and I have cooled down, I'm ready for Peter again. And I'm hoping that this topic, subject matter that this book is on, I hope that it's actually going to be good, but we'll see, because it's very interesting. When you read a man write about women and you being a woman and you reading it and what comes up for you, versus when you read a man write about man and you're not a man, what comes up for you? I mean, nothing come up to me. You know, we'll have our own reactions on many things. So this is Lucifer Princess. I've been meaning to dive deeper into history and myth and story behind Lucifer, so I'm really looking forward to this. If you have read it, let me know what you think about it. This is by Scarlet Imprint. You can't go wrong by Scarlet Imprint printing press, which Peter Gray and his partner, they're both co-founders of. They do a phenomenal job. My hat goes off to Peter for doing a phenomenal job, not only on the printing of the books, but also phenomenal job on who they select as authors. Then I thought, well, since I'm going to be on that, I may as well pick up another book on Lucifer on my shelf that I haven't read yet. This one is called Luminous Stone. This is Lucifer in Western esotericism. I almost said Lucifer in Western. Oh my God, never mind. It sounds very different in my mind. This is basically a compilation of essays by different authors, all compiled together by Michael Howard and Daniel Scholke. Now, Michael Howard, if you don't know, if you're into witchcraft, especially old traditional witchcraft, you want to pick up David Scholke and Michael Howard, both great authors. David Scholke has a really good book on baneful plants. I read it. It's really good. It has beautiful cover. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's not Plants by the Devil. Those are by a female author that she has a number of books on plants, but it is something. It has an alchemical picture on front. So David Scholke is phenomenal. Michael Howard has a book. Those of you who are Wiccans, he has a fantastic book called Modern Wicca. I couldn't put it down. I don't consider myself Wiccan, especially after reading that book. The reason why I'm recommending is because I think people, when they pick up particular, I guess, branches, right? Branches of that cult, in my opinion, it's good to know the history of it. And I think that there is very little about Wicca that people do know. People especially know very little how Aleister Crowley has influenced Gardner and the startup of the Wicca. So I would highly recommend. It's called, I believe it's called Modern Wicca, but it is by Michael Howard. And boy, when you read that, I think you'd be pretty informed and kind of shocked and surprised. So this one is essays, and these are essays by some great people. It has essays by Michael Howard has an essay in here as well. And also Lee Morgan. I love Lee Morgan. Lee Morgan has, I have a number of Lee Morgan's books. I have book on Fae. The name now escapes me. And then there is another one on traditional witchcraft. What is the name? Also great writer. If you're looking for advanced books, people sometimes, this is by Three Hands Press. People, I hear sometimes on YouTube bring up that there is not enough witchcraft books for seasoned practitioners. I disagree. I think that if you want more books by seasoned practitioners, for seasoned practitioners, they seldom are on Amazon. They seldom are. They will not be, in my opinion, published by Llewellyn, or at least I haven't seen. They will not be published by even Wiser. They usually are published by Three Hands Press, Troy Publishing, Antecima Publishing, Scarlet Imprint. There is all of this publishing houses publishing. I want to say places, but they're publishing companies that specifically focus on publishing occult focused books by very, very seasoned writers. They're not reading as Witchcraft 101. Even if you pick up a book by Gemma Gary versus a book by Llewellyn, some other author on traditional witchcraft, you'll still get miles and miles away with Gemma Gary's information than anybody else's. So, sometimes when I hear people say that where are all the books for seasoned practitioners, they're out there, and I learned to decipher that as they're out there, but they're out there not on Amazon, and they're published by this particular publishing company. So again, the Three Hands Press, Antecima Publishing, Troy Books, and Scarlet Imprint, and there's others as well, but you'll know them because when you go to their websites, all it is just a whole bunch of occult books, and they're great. So I'm looking forward to 2 books on Lucifer. Let's see what happens. This is a very short read that I picked up by just searching Amazon, and it had phenomenal reviews. This is self-published by Rust of Nail and Prick of Thorn by Athea Sebastiani, The Theory and Practice of Effective Home Warding. No wonder I'm shopping for a new home. No wonder I picked up a book for home warding, because I am banking my mind that I'll be moving into one soon. So I'm looking forward to read it. I'll let you know. It's sure is good. Then I have 2 books that have to do with death. One I had a long time, another one is pretty recent. Cassia from Teromap invited me to do a workshop with her in November on images, certain motifs through the images, and she wanted me to do death with her. And first of all, she didn't even give me option to say no. She said, you better say yes. Or she actually said, you're doing this with me. This is Cassia. This is how she approaches me. You're doing this with me, which is, I guess, being Russian, this is her Polish way of bulldozing me. And I said, of course, how can I say no to you? So I'm excited to do it. And I've been thinking about death. Those of you who know and follow me know how much I'm fascinated and in love with the concept of death. But I've been really thinking about this. What would the workshop, what could I bring new and fresh and interesting to the table? Not only about death, but also maybe thinking and viewing death differently. And I know that when we think about death in tarot atlas and death cards and death images, we think about immediately transformation. And sure, death is incredibly transformative. That is true. I often think that when we immediately jump to transformation, we also, in a way, dilute the concept of death, and almost as if we're putting this little block and we don't go deep enough, at least for me. And the question I've been thinking about is, yes, das transforms, but what is it that being transformed? And through which alchemical processes it is being transformed and carried through? If you think about the das, um, it carries, I was just thinking about this recently because I went to visit my father's grave in Vancouver, Washington, where he's buried. And I was thinking about how some people are, at least my dad, he was buried in a coffin, and how all this embalmment fluid and everything else, all these toxics go into the land, and how they, instead of nourishing the land around it, they poison the landfill. That's one transformative aspect of death. Another transformative aspect of death is when um, things feed off your body and use your body as nutrients. Another transformative death. Another transformative death is when a body is perhaps buried in a more biodegradable way. So just playing around on all these nuances is what exactly is being transformed. What is being transformed to toxicity, right? Because transformation is not always a good fun. What is being transformed toward a more collective well-being, a more universal well-being? So this is just something I'm playing around. I still don't know. I'll probably will definitely go deeper with that, and would love to look at some of the images of that. But I really want to see a way of, other than just thinking about death as transformation, also thinking about cultivating a deeper relationship with death. So I'll sit on it. If you have any interesting ideas, comment below. If you would like that workshop from me and Kasia, what comes to mind? So the first book on death, I bought this a few months ago. Love the cover. It is Walking the Twilight Path, a Gothic Book of the Dead by Michelle Bellinger, or Bellinger. I think it's French. How did I get to know Michelle? Michelle has another book on energy. It's called Energy Codex. It's about how to become more astute and more aware and more in touch with your energetic fields and yourself as the way, I guess, a medium, using your body as a medium. And that book was recommended by some other occult writers. So I picked up that book, and then I started looking into Michelle because I liked how she was writing. And then I found out she had a YouTube channel. And then I found out that she was in a TV show, Paranormal. Some of you may know the show. So I went and I looked up the show, and I watched a few episodes of the show. It's a reality show. And this was another book that she has published. And the title just really appeals to me. Michelle, overall, how she is as a practitioner, really appealed to me from what I've seen. So I'm really excited to read it. If you read this, or if you read any other books by Michelle, let me know. If you know of her work, let me know. But yeah, so looking forward to this. This is on death. How fitting is it, huh? For September and pushing into October. The other book I have is also on death, and this cover makes me laugh because I'm the first one who removes stickers. I hate stickers on books. Obviously, this one I must have had this book for 15 years. I got it a long time ago in Portland. I guarantee I probably got it in a used bookstore. No, I got it online somewhere. How did this book came into my life? This is a big book, and I have not yet read it. It's called The Hour of Our Death by Philippe Aries. Years ago, I read John Didion's Year of Magical Thinking. If you have not read Year of Magical Thinking by John Didion, do so. There's also a play based on that book. It is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful memoir of her going through the sudden loss of her husband. I believe his name is John. And her making sense of this. I never forget, she has this line, 1 minute he was there, and then the next minute he was gone, because he had a sudden and quick, I believe it was heart attack. And in there, as she's talking about death and her understanding of the loss and grief, she mentions what she read from this book. She cites this book saying that we in Western culture are not taught to honor the ritual of the death, right? When people die, we're quick to hide them, we're quick to embalm them, we're quick to make them look nice and pretty for showing until we bury them. So it's a very different process. And I remember reading it, and I remember nodding my head because I grew up in a different culture. And in Russia, well, Uzbekistan, um, I experienced a very close brush with the death when my cousin, at the age of 16, died from testicular cancer. And the way that he was, the way the process was, you don't take the body to a morgue. There is no morgue, as far as I know. Back then, I must have been 11 or 12 years old. His body was taken to my aunt, his mother, and it's her and other family members washed and prepared the body. Then his body was laid down in a coffin on a table in a living room, and all of the mirrors were covered with bed sheets, or were covered with towels, because I don't really know what is the deal with covering mirrors. I think it's something about spirits and protecting from spirits coming and going. I have to look it up, but in Russia, for that particular funeral, everything was covered, and his body lay in the living room for, I think it was a whole week. And people came and they said goodbye. And I remember very clearly, in their living room wasn't very big and spacious, where they put up the table and put a coffin, and he lay in a coffin. And I was young, and I remember I came up, and they would put coins on top of his eyelids to keep the eyelids from closed. And I remember we were all cousins, so we were allowed to bring something and to put something in his. He was buried in a suit, in his suit pocket, for him to take to the other life. And I think I was a kid, so I think it was like a bubble gum or candy that I put in there. But it was the first time at that age, and I've seen people being carried in coffin from in our neighborhood, because we lived in a 5-story apartment complex building that was door to door to door. It just continued. So when people would lose loved ones, and there was a funeral, we would see the coffin being carried, but it would be closed. So it was my first time being so close to a dead body and so close to a loved one. He was a cousin. We were all very, very close as cousins. So I was thinking about it and what John mentioned, and how it's such a different process, because then I lost my dad already in America to a horrific car accident in 1998. And that was a different process. Morgue, embalmment. He looked so different in a coffin. He looked so bloated and so not like himself. And I was at that time 18 years old. And how it was just so remote and so removed and so transactional. Transactional comes to mind, how we had to pick the coffin, and there was the salesmanship, and pick this, and how many words do you want to put on a plate, and each word is X amount of dollars. Very different experience, and very removed from the death. The minute the death departs, you don't touch them, you don't hold them. I just think it's so wildly different. So I'm looking forward to reading this. I think this is going to end up not being from head to door read, but it's going to end up being kind of a skimmable read, because this book covers the theme of this part 1, the theme of death, part 2, the death of the self, part 3, remote and imminent death, and part 4, the death of the other, the invisible death. So it's just different deaths throughout the Western culture and history, and how people were buried, and how we got to such a remote distance from the burial today. And maybe I will read the whole book, I don't know. But again, as I always, when I read the books by people I love, if they recommend something, and John, my God, I need to remove the sticker. It's driving me nuts. John Didion cited that she must have liked it enough to cite it, so I'm looking forward to read it. Again, if you have not read The Year of Magical Thinking, oh my God, get that book. She has another beautiful book about losing her daughter Quintana. It's called Blue. I think it's called Blue. My God, this woman, she loses John, and then she lost her daughter Quintana. Just such a tragedy, and such an absolute tragedy. So these are my books that are going to be for the next months. I'm really looking forward. We have lots of interesting things here: Death, Lucifer, History of the Witchcraft, a little bit of herbalism, a little bit of everything, really. So looking really forward to reading this. Let me know what you're reading. Let me know if you have read any of this book. Let me know if you have read any of the books I read previous months. Would love to hear what's on your shelf, what's on your table. And I will see you all guys next time. Bye.